I oversee all things training here at Avid, and I'm thrilled to be with you. I'm tuning in from Fort Collins, Colorado. Erik, where are you joining us from today?
I'm Nathan. If you know anything, I travel a lot. It's kind of like, where in the world is Carmen Sandiego? Where is Erik for the last few years? I'm coming in from beautiful, hot, sunny San Antonio, 95 degrees, but I'm also coming in from my hotel room, of all things, utilizing the modern standing desk, which is basically an ironing board.
Okay, well, we're glad you're here, even though you're traveling and on the road and all. They have a makeshift desk. That's incredible. Well, we're talking all about, again, moving up the grid with AI. We're not going to lean too heavily into F1 analogies today or Top Gun. We'll sprinkle in here a little bit there. But we're talking about how can we use AI in our organizations to really start to move the needle on both our efficiency, but also our effectiveness. How do we unlock better results? Erik, as you know, I mean, Avid is just kind of taking over the entire world around us, but many nonprofits are kind of stuck with, what do I do with it? And where do I start? How do I implement it into my day-to-day, my workflows, all that sort of stuff? So we're going to start to unpack a lot of that today. If you've never been on a LinkedIn live stream with us here at Avid, I just want to set the table a little bit. Avid is the fundraising operating system. It's an AI-powered system that really drives your entire fundraising work. Everything from trying to understand what's happening in your data to actually taking action on it. So we do three primary things. One, we connect all your tools together. We make them actually talk, usually for the very first time. From that, we use some machine learning and AI tools to go help you spot what are the trends, what are the problems, what are the opportunities in order to drive growth and revenue forward, and then ultimately help you actually run the plays. And we're going to talk about some of the components that go into building these things as we talk about a bit of the history of AI today, how nonprofits are adopting it, and then again, some of those simple solutions that you can start to implement in your organization. Erik, anything else you'd like to say before we jump in to kind of introduce yourself and kind of your perspective on AI tools in nonprofit today?
You know, if you know anything about me, I'm a long time recovering fundraiser, made a lot of donor visits in my career, raised a lot of money for organizations. And really one of the things that's really just drives me on a daily basis is that idea of human connection. It's being able to connect a donor with a cause they care deeply about. And it's really, at the end of the day, giving is ultimately personal. And you're seeing this, you're hearing this, you're feeling this, is the idea of leadership and budgets are getting tighter, right? And we have to do more with less. And so just in the last 5 or 6 years, I've lent into this idea of utilizing efficient technology to drive generosity and still continue to focus in on that human connection. I think AI is going to actually enhance a lot of the work we do on a daily basis rather than replace those jobs that we have out there. And then also too, I'm really grateful for the work that we're doing at fundraising.ai. Right? Like if you know anything about our organization is in our partnership, it's a conglomerate of a whole host of thought leaders, subject matter experts, fundraisers, consultants, agencies, all of the different places in our space. And it's how do we come together and thoughtfully focused on the responsible and the ethical treatment of AI for our nonprofits. We at Avid, I mean, I'm a part of the advisory board. We've adopted the framework. We are putting ethical framework into our technology, and we want to talk about it. So we love all the work that Fundraising AI is actually a part of, and looking forward to this conversation this afternoon.
Yeah, well, we're super grateful to Fundraising AI for helping kind of get the word out about what we're talking about today and all they're doing across our sector. Do you want to mention the helmet that's on your? On your
I forgot about that, by the way. We're going to bring it up, here and there throughout the conversation. Is Nathan, you are a diehard F1 fan for many, many years, right? And if I remember correctly,
I'm new to the sport, quite honestly. I binged all of Drive to Survive like in January, February, and then have been like locked in since day one of this season. But I'm all in at this point.
I love it. And I am a diehard Top Gun fan. And if you're not following me on LinkedIn, hashtag Top Gun Takeoff is actually a viral thing where we actually give out call signs. And my call sign is Ironclad, a little homage to my hometown of Pittsburgh, being able to do that. And F1 helmet for you, Nathan.
Thank you for that.
Generated by AI too, if I remember correctly.
Oh, yes. Oh, yes. Um, my call sign for Top Gun Takeoff Squad, if you don't know what I'm talking about, just go check out Eric's LinkedIn profile. You'll learn all about it. Is bandwidth, and I'm again pumped to be with you today to talk about AI. Just a little behind the scenes. We had a little competition going to see how we could get more people to join this important conversation today, leaning into kind of our favorite hobbies here, if you can call Top Gun a hobby. I think that's hilarious. Anyway, we were just crunching the numbers on engagement, comments, shares. I think we're about a dead even split. It's hard to tell how you score different things, but it's pretty close.
I'm Rick. It's the hashtag Top Gun Takeoff, and I will be the bigger man. I'm very competitive. Nathan, you won. You crushed it. It was your F1 is clearly more popular than Top Gun.
Well, the timing works out because the movie just came out, so
I think so too.
Had some help there. Now, I want to hear from all of you who are joining us. How do you feel at this point about AI? I'm going to put some options up on the screen here in a moment, and you can choose from one of them. But you also might feel very differently than I even might project that you could be feeling. So the ways that I think you might be feeling could be certainly scared, scared of a lot of things. Maybe it's an AI overlord takeover. Could be that extreme, or it could be just scared of what this means for my data. If I have AI tools inside of my workflows, scared for my own job or my own work or my own role, or just that my kind of status quo is going to change. Those are all legitimate feelings. You could feel excited. You could be pumped about the opportunities ahead of you, or even some of the quick wins you've already been starting to see as you're using AI tools. You could feel apathetic to it all and say, I'm overwhelmed already. I don't have the time and capacity to even give the brain space to thinking about AI solutions. And so I just need to kind of check out and just let it sort of play out. And maybe I'll check back in 6 months or in a year. So jump in the comments, let us know, how are you feeling about using AI tools inside of your work right now? As you do that, Erik, what thoughts do you have about, as you're having lots of conversations with fundraisers, how do you see that people are feeling as it relates to implementing these types of tools?
Nathan, it's so interesting where every time we talk about AI, I always like asking a question to your point, how do you feel about AI? And I always ask nonprofit leaders to say one word to go around a room so I can kind of gauge the audience on what people are feeling. And so that's been my barometer. And I would say about 2 years ago when I started doing that, it was more about Skynet and robots taking over the world. And it was scary and nonprofits no. But just in the most recent 6 months or so, folks are actually leaning into it. They've actually adopted it. They're talking about it. They're using it. They see that it's enhancing the work on a daily basis. And they're gradually going in there. I know we as nonprofits, we are usually 5 or 6 years behind the for-profit space, but we are actually going faster, I think, in this realm.
Yeah, I mean, I especially in this realm, we can't afford to be that far behind. If we get 6 years behind it, I mean, with the speed that these types of tools are progressing, 6 years is going to feel more like 20 years when you look historically. So anyway, really interesting to see how people are kind of reacting to these tools as they're coming online and taking over pretty much our life and finding their way into every other tool we use. A little data for us as we talk about this idea that I'm calling AI paralysis, just a sort of concept that lots of us get stuck trying to figure out what do we do with these tools and how do we implement them. I see Chris is saying he's excited but guarded about AI tools. Rick says, forget Skynet, it's more like the Borg. I love this. We'll put that comment up on the screen just to highlight that because that's hilarious. I love it. Thank you, Rick, for jumping in. Thank you, Chris, for jumping in with your thoughts here as well. Some data for us, again, as we dive in here. It's really interesting to kind of compare what's happening on nonprofit side versus the for-profit side as well. What McKinsey and Company is reporting, because they're doing a lot of survey research about how people are adopting these tools. I just updated this morning because I was looking at last year's report, but I found a new report that came out in March where they found that looking at 2024 survey data, okay, so it still could have changed in the past 6, almost 7 months, but 78% of companies are using AI in at least one business function. I would imagine this is probably in the 80s at this point because looking around across the sector, across what's happening in technology, 6 or 7 months ago, like the landscape has already changed with how much these tools are coming online. So that's an incredible stat to see the adoption of tools that didn't really even exist 3 years ago, right? It was certainly not in the same form. They have this chart that I think is really interesting, although it's very hard to understand. You can stare at and squint at it and probably won't get any closer to understanding what it's saying. But if you ask ChatGPT what this chart says, it might give you an answer something like this, which is the chart means that about 50% of companies are using AI are to send to create their content, but then they're sending and publishing it before they even review it. So there's no real human operator for about 50% of companies that are using generative AI tools, which for me, this is why I imagine that a lot of people are really guarded and scared, especially in nonprofit, about using these types of tools. Like we need to operate with higher integrity than this, but we see this happening in the world around us, and it causes us to kind of pull back, because this can't be the way forward of just letting an AI solution create all of our content and sending it out into the wild with no human operator. Diving a little bit deeper, some observations that they're making about what's happening across these companies adopting AI. Many large companies are able to go use best practices in their AI adoption, but they're operating at a certain scale where they can afford to do this and hire people to do it. We live in a world where every nonprofit has resource limitations and can't operate at the same scale. So that causes us to kind of pull back maybe a little bit. Many companies express that it's really hard to go hire AI-related roles and skill sets. And again, when you have for-profit budgets and resources, and they're finding challenges in doing this, how much more are we going to face these challenges on the nonprofit side when we're already feeling resource strapped? I think this observation is kind of hilarious, actually. They're saying that most companies expect to be reskilling their staff for the next 3 years as it relates to AI. Again, these tools didn't even really exist 3 years ago. So how can we project in 3 years where we're going to be? We have to be on this constant cycle of reskilling, retraining, upskilling, and moving ourselves forward. And this last one for you here, companies expect changes in headcount due to AI adoption. That doesn't necessarily mean layoffs, although in some cases it certainly does. But it certainly means in every case, reconsidering what someone's role is now that they're kind of augmented with AI tools in order to be more efficient. You might be spending 70% of your time on just grunt work and 30% on like the most important piece, but you got to do the 70% to get to the 30. AI could take over that 70% of grunt work and let you focus on the more important stuff with all your time. So that's going to reconfigure org structures and who we hire and what our teams look like. So that's what's happening out in for-profit world. Erik, you shared this with me the other day, and I thought it was really relevant to this conversation. But this article and this report from the Chronicle of Philanthropy, there's a lot of really good stuff in there. And so if there's stuff we don't cover that you think is relevant, but I thought this stat is really fascinating, that 46% of nonprofits say that they are currently active users of AI technology in their operations. So we're not even quite at the halfway point of adoption to any stretch, whether it's in one business operation or it's across the organization. What's really shocking to me is this stat, that when nonprofit leaders and C-suite level people are looking at the next 3 to 5 years, only 77% see that they're going to use AI in their operations. Erik, what do you think about that? Because that doesn't feel great to me. What's your take on that?
I mean, it's better than what it could have been, I guess. But the reality is I'm with you. Like, I'm an eternal optimist. Like, we should be leaning in as further as we can. I think Jody's point is the main thing right there. Jody put in there, security is my biggest fear, how to take the benefit without giving away our information. I think the security, at the end of the day, us as nonprofit leaders, we focus on the one critical thing. We're not selling widgets. We're not selling aptitude. We're selling an intrinsic value to focus on the program and the mission of our organization. And that all spends down to trust. And trust is the key matter. Is like, if we can trust the AI, I think more nonprofits will lean into it. But right now they're still, skeptical, checking it out, but dipping their toe in the pool to see where they are. But I'm encouraged by 77, but I think it could be a lot more.
Agreed. Yeah, I'm excited about where things are going. Excited for the optimistic view of how these tools can be used. I hope that if this report is done a year from now, that more people have come on board with some optimism about what these tools can do, especially as we see them integrated into more and more places. But Erik, I'll hand it to you to go from here. Why is it so hard for nonprofits to get started?
Well, I mean, we're going to keep moving forward. The challenge is like, really, there's so many, right? And I think that's another really hard thing to do. There's so many different systems, there's so many technologies. We've got, if you go to G2 is one of my favorite systems out there. It's basically the Yelp for all things technology. If you're going to find something for your home business or your for-profit, your nonprofit, whatever it is, I would go here first. But when you start looking into it, you dig deeper, there's how many different types of AI tools. We've got active learning, we got copywriting, we've got generative AI software, we got data labeling. But just under one of those areas of 10,000 AI tools, there's over 110 instances of generative AI infrastructure. It's like, where do we begin, right? Like, it's really hard for us to identify, take the time out of our day-to-day to be able to focus in there and identify those subcategories. But it's exhausting. Right? That's it, right? We're going to just give up and just walk away. And I think, to your point earlier, that's why we're at 77%. But really, at the end of the day, I want to go back. I want to look to see, let's go to the history. If you know anything about me, I'm all about data and I want to see where we're going to go. But really, I want two types of AI for you to consider when you move forward within your nonprofit. There's a whole host of them right now out there. There's 4 of them that I'm going to go through, right? We got machine learning, which is I'll go into in a second. We've got large language models, or LLMs, folks like talking about. We've got these AI agents that are happening on a regular basis. Then, yeah, here we go. We've got Skynet or the Borgs or whatever is, but very scary robots. We're going to be focusing only on the machine learning and the LLMs is where we want to go. As much as I want to talk about Terminator and everything else, we're going to go back and just say, hey, let's just focus. Let's take baby steps. Let's wade ourselves into the pool and look at machine learning first. And really, this thing has been here forever, guys, is really at the end of the day. Machine learning is really just, we're looking at patterns, relationships, rules. We're trying to figure out the data to really identify what the audience and the communication and the segmentation that we want to be able to do. We're going to do the segmentation, the projections, and the personalization. Really, what does this remind you of? I mean, it reminds me a lot of all the work we do on the front end of direct mail and annual fund and everything else. And that starts back with our RFM. And so when you look at the history of machine learning from the 60s to the 70s, we focus on RFM, which is, if you're a direct mail nerd like I was and kind of still am, is it's recency, frequency, monetary, how often, how frequent, how often, what the value is, was actually introduced into direct marketing channels. And it was actually helped to identify some of our audience and everything else. We've been using segmentation from the beginning to focus on transactions. And now it's actually used for-profit catalogs and credit card companies and leading into that different direction. But then we go from the 70s or the 80s to the 90s, and we started adopting, the only organizations that were able to adopt the RFM were the incredibly large ones, right? Like the Red Cross, the Greenpeaces, the Salvation Armies. But the challenge with that, they had to be able to do all the segmentation and focus on direct mail and keep going to the next one. The hard part to use this is they had to lean into agencies. Agencies became the default to be able to start focusing on that or the direct mail tool to be able to look at RFM. And that was the default prioritization methodology for all things that we wanted to do. And it keeps on going into the 2010s, where now we're looking at this predictive modeling. Right. And so we started with where we were, and now we're going into these predictive models, and there's so many great data sets out there that are being able to use the third-party data tools like wealth data or purchase, consumer behavior, or marital status, political status. All of these things are now able to be implemented directly into a software or a database and technology. So now you can actually look at all the different things, whether or not a donor is ready to give and or not give and stop giving or getting involved or whatever it may be. But we always are using these models in the background. It's been here, and that's where the unique piece is for this segmentation of machine learning. And we keep going to the next one. Whereas the challenges that we have out there is, I think this one's you, Nathan, right? Talking about where we are with our revenue and our donors from an organization standpoint.
Yeah, it's really interesting how this kind of plays out, because as all that kind of progression happens, as we become more and more sophisticated with modeling and now using machine learning to drive that modeling and all that sort of stuff, it certainly drives revenue, right? It wouldn't exist if it wasn't actually good at finding the right people and leading more people to give. And so when you go look at some benchmarking data, and this is coming directly out of Avid benchmarking, you can see that there's, look at the past 5 years, you've got 21, 22, and 24 are all up years in terms of overall giving. And you would kind of think, if you don't know the deeper data, that, well, that probably means that more people are giving in those years for one reason or another. It's post-COVID, and okay, more people feel like they have some cushion to give, less uncertainty in the market, that kind of stuff. But the reality is that donors have basically been down almost every one of those years. So we have revenue that might be increasing in some cases, but the number of donors as a trend line is going down. Giving USA even just shared some of that data too, about how like individual giving as a slice of the overall funding pie is getting smaller and smaller. What's really kind of interesting on the modeling side and the machine learning side is the better we get at it, it might actually be leaving some people or keeping people from having a seat at the table of generosity that may have the capacity to give, but they don't meet the model. The model becomes really good at finding, in our current world of understanding, these are the people that should give and you should reach out to. But it might leave some people off to the side and keep them from having a seat at the table of growing giving and growing generosity. So with any of these things, there's good and there's bad, there's pros and there's cons. And so we have to keep those in mind to make sure that we adopt them in the healthiest ways possible. So there's a couple options to consider here.
Well,
Erik,
I'll double click on what you just shared. Is, you know, I was just speaking with a large nonprofit organization this morning, and they were talking about how do we implement AI into our organization and everything else. And I laid in right there what you just said. It's all about those modeling. It's also trying to make sure you're communicating the right person with the right message, what they gave to. I was talking to a friend earlier this week, and she donated to an organization all about the fires in California. And immediately she got a message from them talking about some random natural disaster in like Asia. And there was a disconnect in that mindset, right? And so now we can start utilizing, to your point, modeling to be able to communicate effectively to those people when they give what they're passionate about in a timely manner in all those different areas. So agree. I think the technology to consider, there's some really good ones. I'm a big fan when we do presentations is to leave with some best practices and some tactical ideas. And some of the ones that we like is technology to consider is Fundraise Up. They do these giving arrays, the smart donation arrays. And one of my favorite things is we can actually start looking at where folks are, what they've been giving. That recency, frequency, and monetary is now digital. We can incorporate it directly into our giving platform. So now we can ask appropriately from our donors, what is an appropriate gift from them. We have the cart abandonment reduction. You know, I like these systems, and there's a lot out there, but Fundraise Up is also one of them that does that. Is cart abandonment, where you put something in a Target cart, you get an email 2 days later saying, hey, did you forget something in your cart? You know, like, these are things that giving is so personal. We want to make sure it's happening. And obviously we have to be focusing on those fraud charges. There's a whole host of bad people out there with credit cards that are stolen, that are testing them on nonprofit tech because they think we're easy victims. But Fundraise Up has a really good solution for that.
Yeah. On the flip side, modeling tool.
Yeah. I like the modeling tools that are out there that, you know, Wyland, Donor Bureau, Dotero, like there's some really good systems out there to be able to figure out like what is going on with your database and your donors, and actually can start modeling and creating specific messaging and lists for you to be able to go down there. Nathan, what do you think about these two?
Yeah, no, these are all great solutions on the modeling side for sure. And we've seen them all used and even integrated directly into Avid. People that are using kind of Avid as well as pulling in some modeling tools like these into their larger data set. So I do think they're really great tools to consider to help you go down that road of how do we reach more of the right people, even doing some modeling off of, okay, these are my current donors, who else might be out there that looks like my current donors, to go bring in some new people into the fold and kind of grow the larger pool. So fantastic solutions here to really find ways to use some of that modeling and even machine learning capabilities, but bring it in-house without having to find all these custom solutions, but it's kind of done for you in some of these systems.
And it's going to the other side. So now I want to talk about the second AI tool that's out there. This one's a little bit different because there's not much history to it. So large language model, LLMs is what people like to call them. But really the history, if you go to the next slide, is really, it's the gap. I'm not going to go in the decades like I did in the other one, where this is from the 60s to 2017 is really, we've only been doing these neural networks, this statistical language models. It was very broad. It was so big. Not many individuals and organizations were using it until 2017, where Sam Altman created the transformer architecture, which we all now know as OpenAI and ChatGPT, and really was able to write on all the different generative languages out there. And now AI has the ability to create text or images or video, Top Gun themes, F1 helmets, all of this stuff, to be able to start focusing on what we want to do, to be able to passing the Turing test. And so what it does is it looks at everything that's out there on the web and is actually able to pull everything together into one data set. It's funny. Nathan, I mentioned this to my wife over the weekend. Our joke about the two posts that we did, one for Top Gun, one for F1. Inside my Top Gun, someone asked the question, was like, hey, would you go into your ChatGPT and say, tell me about Erik? And it gave me, and I'm not kidding, it literally gave me 3 paragraphs and it was 100% correct. And the one part about it was talking about my wife, her interior design business, the name of my 2 dogs. And it's fascinating because what this is doing, the LLMs, it's constantly learning from you on a regular basis. And she was creeped out in for a second, but then I told her, I was like, no, I have trained it. I have talked with it. I have been able to grow with it, and it now understands me. Now I can go faster. And I wasn't worried about what it said about who I was as an intro.
Yeah. Oh, it's fascinating. Mine, again, given my affinity for F1, it named itself Apex the other day. And it had some whole reason as to why Apex. Like, you want to stick the line through the Apex, and I can help you stick the line through your word. Anyway, it is crazy how much it learns and remembers and all that sort of stuff.
But go ahead.
It's not without challenges, right? It's not without problems, just like anything else. There's a ton of applications for LLMs, and we're going to talk about some of them. But the challenge with using them is that they're only as good as what they're trained on, and they don't always actually know what's effective. So I even sat through a session a few months ago where someone was doing some basic training on just how to use ChatGPT, which is really interesting because everybody's at kind of a different stage in their application. And some people just need to know, how do I log in and ask it some basic prompts? And other people are doing really complex stuff. But as this person is kind of going through that, they're talking about, okay, if you needed to write an email, go ask ChatGPT to put its email expert hat on and then write you the email. And there's some truth in doing that, of just kind of giving it some prompting to think about, all right, think about how an email expert would write this email, not just someone receiving an email. But the problem is that, again, it's only as good as what it's been trained on. And when you think about something like email specifically, the bulk of communication that's out there for an LLM to be trained on is going to be email newsletters. And the content that's out there about how to write better emails is largely put out by the platforms that create the tools, who are not necessarily experts at the strategy, they're experts at the technology, and they're selling you features, like all the different design elements and layouts and all that stuff. The reality is, though, when you put these kinds of things to the test, side by side, to try to figure out what's the most effective tactic and strategy, newsletters are usually the lowest on the totem pole when it comes to deliverability. They don't tend to have very high engagement compared to more like one-to-one direct, like single call to action emails. Their response rates are a fraction of more of a dedicated, more plain text style email, simple language focused call to action. So there's a time and a place for newsletters, yes. But if you're using all of this as your guide to write a fundraising appeal, you're going to leave so much on the table. So that's the challenge of using an LLM, is how do you know that it knows what it's doing, right? It's going to tell you that it knows what it's doing. It's going to be confident, but you don't really know what you're going to get back. You look at some experiments. These are provided by our friends at Next After. Again, they've done a lot of this A/B testing on what's effective when it comes to advertising and emails and all that sort of stuff. You've got a highly designed email on the left, a plain text email on the right. The plain text focused email led to a 19% increase in clicks, contrary to a lot of the broader thinking that's out there put out by platforms, and especially when it comes to newsletters. You've got this, which is a direct donation appeal that takes two very different approaches. One is very focused on you bringing into those design elements into a template using more brand language. The flip side is using a plain text approach email. There's no design in it really at all. It's human, simple language focused on a singular call to action. This approach led to a 272% increase in donations. So the way that these tools are trained determines how effective they are, which makes it a little bit scary when you go ask ChatGPT to go write you your direct mail appeal. How do you know that it knows what an effective direct mail appeal is? So those are just some words of caution when it comes to using LLMs. Erik,
I 100% agree with you on all fronts, because that's the piece where you want to go. So now you can start using those assets and putting together those profiles, put together a donor direct mail piece. I would recommend working on 5, 10, 15, figure out what that best practice is. And then from there, that will work for your organization. Some things that I love that LLMs can actually do is actually summarize our donor reports, pulling together all of the messaging of saying, hey, these are all the donor reports from a face-to-face fundraiser. If I can go pull all of my notes from the last 10 years that I've been visiting with this donor, what are the things that are standing out? What matters? What are the trends? Gives me a great starting point. The other one is write fundraising copy. This is a great, again, I'm going to say it's a starting point. Get 80% of the stuff done using what you just walked through, Nathan, about the direct mail piece, but we can do it for a lot of other things. Thank you messages, social media copy, like all the different things that we do on a regular basis. And actually it does enhance the work. So it's going to scale the work. And this nonprofit I talked with this morning, I deliberately said, hey, now we can use automation on the back end. When someone donates, now we can be personal, we can be intentful, we can actually send them the right thank you message about the fires in Southern California instead of Asia to be able to do it. But then at the end of the day, it's there. It's going to become the fundraiser. There's opportunity and there's some things that the Skynet's out there, but it's going to be the opportunity for us to move forward. So.
Some really interesting applications, just to even put some color around that, like how can it summarize donor reports? I think this one is fascinating. This is using a tool called Zapier, which is not in and of itself an AI tool. It has some AI components like everything else, right? But it helps pull data from one place to another, and like, okay, a form submission came in here, let's go put it over into our email tool, something like that. So Zapier is a really, really great tool. One potential Zap you could set up, you could have it go pull a donor's profile from your CRM. Let's go grab that. Then let's go pull the wealth screen data from something like a donor search and pull that data in. Then let's go use all that to go look this person up on LinkedIn. And then let's hand all that data over to ChatGPT, which is that LLM that can then go summarize this. And then you go kick out a report to your gift officer, who now has all of that donor research done for them in a matter of seconds, now on their desk or on their laptop in front of them, ready to go make a visit or make a phone call.
And that's faster, efficient, focused. It's, I would say 90% correct, but it's doing all the dumb work that we would have to do on a Monday morning to do all the research on our prospects that coming week.
Yeah, it's phenomenal. And that's that's one small application, and there's thousands of applications for this type of stuff. So you want to talk about like what else could ChatGPT do for us?
I think ChatGPT has all the considerations. We can actually, one thing that I love doing, and I'll joke about it again, I have my own Top Gun custom GPT, but like inside our own organizations, we can create specific donor personas of how a person feels, how they think, so that we can work with that custom GPT to actually reduce the edits, reduce the revisions, but we can actually be focused and be able to say, hey, how are we going to talk to our donor who just donated to Southern California fires? What is great copy? And it consistently learns and grows and actually builds with you. And so now I'm a big fan of utilizing the custom GPTs. And it's actually being able to provide those past examples and focus on your campaigns, everything else. One thing I love doing with my own GPT is it keeps going through that whole process. And you say, yes, no, do this, do that, whatever it is. How many times does anybody, and I don't think anybody does this, it's very few I've heard, I will go in at the end to be able to say, hey, this is the finished product of what I completed. and I'll upload it to my ChatGPT and say, hey, this is for reference. This is what I created. This is what I've sent out and posted, direct mail, whatever it is. And it will log it in the background of saying, hey, this is what the correct product that you asked for does. So it closes the loop. Everyone just does the front end of asking it and talking to it and working on prompt, but you have to finish it on the back end to be able to say, hey, this is what I produce. This is what I like.
Yeah, this is the output that I'm looking for next time I ask you for something like this.
Exactly.
It's a great little tip. So lots of stuff you can do there. We'll chat a bit more about that too in a moment. I'll give you a resource around some things that you can do in ChatGPT to just make your life a lot easier. Not to be too self-promoting, but Avid's another solution to consider as well. Another piece of technology. It's really a system that can help bring those AI tools in-house. Help you drive campaigns based on data, increase personalization, obviously deploying then content that's created by LLMs, but trained a little bit more effectively than just asking your ChatGPT to write you an email. Erik, anything else you'd say about ways that Avid might be able to help on the AI side of things?
I mean, the AI side, we're actually using the actual machine learning in the background is time-tested best practices of fundraising. And so we have about 8,000 experiments that we've done, 650 million data sets on the back end. So this isn't just open AI using it for all the different things that's out there in the space. This is actually proven best practices in fundraising that can focus in on the AI to focus on those playbooks.
Yeah. It's a great system to go plug in and pull all these different solutions into your workflows overnight, really, to start to get you up to speed, to boost that efficiency and also get better results. I and Erik, you said this a moment ago. We both share this idea. Like, I don't want you to just join here and find some interesting ideas and walk away with something to think on for the afternoon, but I want you to get some really practical things that you can do as well. So a couple just simple AI solutions that you can start to implement as soon as this afternoon, that you don't have to spend any money on. I'd love to give you some kind of clear next steps. One is clearly ChatGPT is kind of the go-to source for a lot of this, like generating language, whether it's copy for an ad or for an appeal or your website and all sorts of different things. The challenge, as we've kind of outlined, though, again, is that these tools are only as effective as how they've been trained. And so I've put together a really simple resource for you that can help you train ChatGPT on not just your brand, but also effective copywriting for fundraising. Very quick little story. The company I used to work for called Next After, Riley here was my coworker, and she was kind of working side by side with me on the marketing side of things. And we put out this newsletter once every week, and she was in charge of writing it. And she spent a long time learning how to write as me because they were all signed by Nathan. And what I didn't realize for months, as she's seeking feedback and trying to understand, how do I make this better? How do I tweak this and improve the language? I didn't realize for months that she was actually using ChatGPT to write every single one of these emails. I thought it was like she just like had it locked in, which she did, but then she trained ChatGPT on how to go write as me without me even noticing a difference. So that's what's possible. So I took some of her framework and then kind of built it out for more fundraising purposes to put some templates together for you. Here's the snapshot of what one of these prompt templates look like, but you can simply ask ChatGPT to go remember and recall your brand voice. You could give it a specific name that you and your GPT friend, that, and you can say, hey, recall the Avid brand voice and write me an email or write me a blog or whatever it is. You can train it on your mission. You can train it on your vision. You can train it on things that you say, oftentimes words and phrases. You can train it on stuff that you should absolutely never say, whether you have specific language or phrases or topics that you don't talk about as an organization. You can train it on those things. Your value proposition, even things like the nuances of how to talk to specific donor personas. These conversations can get really long. I'll just kind of show you real quick. This was the start of one of mine of like, here's our entire brand voice that you should remember and recall. And then it synthesizes this, and then it recalls it every time and applies it to the copy. This was just step one, by the way. So there's a lot that you could train it on. So I put together this guide, and you can go ahead and scan that QR code to go grab a copy of it. It's totally free for you. Fill out your name and email. We'll send it to you. But it walks you through some steps to go put together this guide. It's kind of a plug and play. Put your mission in here. Put your vision in here. Who are your different types of donors. then go paste all of this into ChatGPT is basically the approach. So you can grab that guide, grab a copy of it as a next step in order to get it up to speed with how to talk like you, with how to write like you. I see some shout outs for Riley and how she used ChatGPT to write like me. Go Riley.
Well, the reason why I love that this resource is available for fundraisers is the fact that we talked about at the beginning, right? 77% of organizations think they will be using AI in the next 3 years. It's hard. There's so many different systems. We don't know what to do. This is a great prompting tool and training tool to be able to say, hey, this gives me a head start on all of those different pieces to drive it.
Absolutely. And we're just going to make your life easier to get things like it's the quick start guide to start using this inside of your copywriting. Again, keep a human operator, right? We don't want to just have it write and send on its own entirely. Keep a human involved, but it's good to your point, going to do that first 80% and you can finish the last 20.
Yep.
One other really interesting application that again is most of you probably already have for free if you're using like Google Workspace. Even if you're not, you can go do a free like 14-day trial of it just to play around with it and see if it's something you want to subscribe to. But you can analyze so much data so quickly using Gemini, and this has come along like a long ways even in the past couple of months. Just yesterday, I created this spreadsheet using AI. By the way, hey, did you know you could ask ChatGPT to create a giant spreadsheet full of fake data for you? So you can play around. And it's pretty amazing. It'll ask you all the prompts. Okay, what columns and how many rows and all that sort of stuff and what format. So it put together this spreadsheet for me. If you squint, you can see there's a lot of Mario themes in there. I asked it to go create like all the addresses for all these Mario themed people. It even went so far as I didn't ask it to do this, but it understood, okay, in the Mario map, there's all these different worlds, like 1 through 8. So those are like all the different regions that are in there. It's like this person lives in World 3. Yeah. I thought it was hilarious. So it has this spreadsheet has all these different data points, everything from their contact ID down to their first gift, last gift, dates and amounts, some giving level summaries in there, all that sort of stuff. Gemini, just really quickly, you jump in here, all you have to do is hit this Analyze Insights button, and here's what it spit back. Within an instant, it took a look at everything, and this is like 7,000 rows of data. It looked across all of this and summarized, okay, you have all these 3 main buckets of types of donors. Here's what you should know about them. Here's how the file breaks down. Here's how many you have in each one. Here's their average gift sizes. Here's a little observation I'm kind of making about how these people tend to give, all in an instant, which is just amazing. But it can go a lot deeper. You can go prompt it with specific questions. I just asked it, hey, how many mid-level donors do I have who live in World 3 and have given this year? And so it jumped in here and said, hey, look, there's 13 of them. They've all given, since January 1st. Let me know if you want to dive deeper or make a chart or all that sort of stuff. So I can start to get that granular to understand, okay, who are these people that have given at this high level that I should probably go make sure they're in a cultivation campaign? I steward them well so they give again next year, maybe upgrade a gift. You can have it go create charts for you. You can have it go generate lists for you. The last one I asked it to do was, hey, go create a list of all my mid-level donors who haven't given this year yet. We're 7 months in now to this year. They hopefully are starting to give. Who do I need to go make the next phone call to? And so it spit out this list in a matter of seconds that I can go hand to a gift officer, make sure is assigned to a portfolio, put them in an email campaign, put them in an ad campaign, do all the things. Again, this is just using a effectively free tool that's out there if you're using Google Workspace to speed up so many of your workflows and processes. So there's some very practical next steps for you. One being train ChatGPT and then start using Gemini for all your data crunching. It's amazing.
It's interesting. I'm not a Gemini guy, but I want to lean into it. I'm gonna pick your brain on this.
Yeah, I haven't used it a ton. I'm just kind of dabbling, but it's really amazing what you can do.
There's a really cool tool out there. I'm going to give a shout out to my friend Sean Olds. It's called Boodlebox. Yeah. And what they do is they look at all of the different prompting tools. So you put something into Claude, you put something into Gemini, you put something into ChatGPT, and it just goes right down all the different learning on all 3 of them. And I've been playing with that, but I've not been playing separately solo with the Gemini.
Yeah. Well, there's so many of these tools out there with so much power. Just to wrap things up, we've covered a lot of ground today. I'm sure there's lots of thoughts and ideas and questions. And thank you for those of you who have stuck around with us. I do want to say, Avid pulls all these things together under one roof as really as a fundraising operating system using AI and machine learning, both machine learning and LLMs, powering a lot of different components that can be built right into your processes and workflows. Just a quick little sneak peek for you. Really what it can do, again, it brings all your data under one roof. It's connecting all of your tools finally, because they never like to talk to each other, and Avid is able to bring them all together. Everything from donation forms to email tools to CRM data and everything in between. It uses machine learning to go figure out what are those most important things you should know about and what should you do about it? What's your next move? What's the opportunity? What's the problem to solve? Looking at all your data, using those AI-driven insights, all that sort of stuff, it automatically syncs your segmentation to each appropriate fundraising channel in an instant, overnight, refreshing the data every single day, giving you a lot of time back, not having to pull lists all the time. You set it up and you kind of can forget about it because it just runs, it just works. And then it helps build campaigns using some LLMs and helps build campaigns that run themselves, which is pretty incredible. And again, this is not just asking ChatGPT to go write me some emails for a recurring giving acquisition campaign. It's trained on 8,000 plus fundraising experiments that prove what's most effective to write an effective ad, an effective email, make an effective phone call, all that sort of stuff. So it's only as effective as how it's been trained. And we've taken every step possible to go make sure this is trained by fundraisers who are highly effective. Last thing I'll leave you with as we kind of wrap up and take any questions that might be out there. If you want to dive deeper on Avid, and not just Avid, but just enabling your teams with AI, we've put together this ebook for you. You can scan the QR code and go grab it, but it's really casting kind of a vision of what could your team be like? What could you accomplish if you're able to equip you and your team and your organization with these types of tools to keep moving the ball forward, to improve efficiency, grow your effectiveness, and ultimately raise more money for a really important cause. Erik, any kind of parting thoughts before we say goodbye to our friends today?
Nathan, this has been great. I always love talking about new things, new technology, new processes, with the focus on human connection, generosity, the core of what we do. And in that same mindset, we are resources. Even if you don't want to scan the QR code and you have a random question about some product or something or some idea, feel free to reach out to myself, Nathan, any day, anytime. That's one thing I love about our friendship and what we do for nonprofit people is we love helping each other. And so we want to be a resource for you. So even if you just want to talk things, and frankly, if we don't know, we're going to tell you we don't know the answer. But there's a lot more year left here, and recommend like the ebook and opportunity to look forward. Thanks so much.
Well, Megan Spear gave us a raving endorsement, highly recommends the ebook. So thank you for that, Megan. If you do have any questions that are out there, feel free to drop them again in the LinkedIn comments here and we'll try to get them answered. But we're really, really grateful for your time. Really grateful that you have spent some time to join us and wading through some technical difficulties with us there at the very beginning. Send us a direct message, connect with us here on LinkedIn. Happy to chat anytime to dive deeper on this stuff with you. So thank you again. Thanks for giving us an hour of your time. We wish you all the best. Good luck as you dive into enabling and equipping your teams with some of these AI tools as you look to grow into the future.
Awesome. Thanks, y'all.
We'll see you next time.